Black History Month, and we are highlighting some of those Middlesex cricketers who are such an important part of the Middlesex story. And I have with me Paul Weeks, who was 16 seasons, was it, with the Middlesex?
Yeah, 16 first-class seasons and almost 20 seasons overall. If you put in the second 11 games and the amount of time I was on the staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's in that time well, first let's talk about your first class record, and I know that your record, of course, is List A as well as first class. And first class, you scored for Middlesex 10,946 runs, 20 hundreds. That's actually that's 11 runs more than Butch scored for Middlesex. It's kind of some nice, I look at these little things, right?
Funny you said that, because obviously I played along with Butch. I don't think I played first class with Butch, but I was playing second teams when he was finishing off, etc.
Yes.
So I'm glad. I know for a fact I got more runs than him.
only 11. But
Yeah,
11 runs.
11,
yeah. And of course, you won 2 county championships. You count 1990, which is your very first season, 1993, and a National League title in 1992, which for the benefit of all the listeners is the old Sunday League as well, as I suppose you would call it, wasn't it? Which
fabulous.
We certainly never won in my time. I can tell you that. we were the longer the game, the better we were. That's for sure. You joined Middlesex in 87, was it?
Yeah, So I played second 11 games in 87, and I think I signed at the end of that year. So end of 87, 88, start of 88, I signed.
So how old were you then?
So I would have been 17, turning 18. So I was 3 months on the MCC ground staff.
Okay.
And then I played 3 games for Middlesex, and Don Wilson saw something in me. As an off spinner, so I signed as an off spinner, but I think I made my career, if you want to call it a career, as a batsman. But I signed as an offie.
The two dons of
2 Dons, Don Wilson and Don Bennett, 2 champions of men.
Yeah, they were actually. They talked to Butch and others of that time the importance of having somebody like Don. We never regarded Don as a coach. You kind of self-coached in the first team, but Don was a wonderful mentor and spotter and nurturer of talent.
I've listened to a few of these Zoom sessions, and what everyone said is 100%. Don, even now, going into my 50s now, if Don was still alive, if you walked into the room with Don, you kept quiet and you listened. The respect that he had was unbelievable. And to be able to manage the side that you played in, et cetera, with all those international stars must have been phenomenal, just to get that respect from someone like Don.
Yeah, I think, if Don said, well done, or that was good, or that wasn't so good, or you did listen to that. He offered none of the things too freely. A bit like Harry Sharp, actually. Was Sharpie still?
Sharpie, yeah, I remember Sharpie. Sharpie was scoring when I came in first. So both of them obviously from the same cloth. But it's like anything, Mike. If Don was in this era, no doubt he would be like the guys with the clipboard and pens you see on the TV every day. It was the era that we played in, and everyone managed themselves, and he done the collective as such.
Yeah. Now, you made your first class debut in 1990. You said you didn't play with Butch, but actually you did, because that was Butch's last game.
Is that right? That's probably where I forgot it. I remember that first class debut. I think it was at Lord's, and I think Desi got a big double 100 against Sussex. Or was that 1990?
No, it was against New Zealand.
New Zealand. Just quickly on that, people ask me that. I remember bowling in that match, and it was my first game. I was terrified as hell, as one would be. And I remember bowling, and I was bowling 1.5, 2 runs per over, and feeling my way. Then all of a sudden, Martin Crowe came in, the great Martin Crowe. I'll never forget this. The first 2 balls, the first one hit the score box, and the second one hit someone up in the tapping stand. That was 10 off 2 balls. after bowling a dozen overs for 1.5, and just showing the class and the gap between him and everyone else. So that was great. And I forgot that Butch played in that game. That was absolutely right. You're right about that.
Yeah, it was his last game. I think you got Mark Graybatch out. That was your.
I got Mark Graybatch out. Yeah, that was my first wicket. Got off the mark first ball against Richard Hadley. Never forget that little one on the hip. Left-handed could hit that all day long. But yeah, so it was a great experience, and I'm just happy that not Embry. Yeah, Embry was, I think, ill that day or missing. So I got my chance.
Well, because I knew Martin Crowe from when he was a schoolboy. I was in New Zealand when he was a schoolboy and in Auckland, and we were friends ever since back then. And of course, he was a ground staff boy.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. In 80 or 81, I think. He was. I tell people this story, right? That he, there's nothing new under the sun. But I remember Martin Crowe in the nets, watching him one day. We were practicing and watching him switch hitting in the nets. Now he doesn't remember that, or he didn't remember that. He said, "No." I said, "I saw you with my own eyes, Hogan. I saw you."
Well, I like I said, I can remember that. Even like I said, getting Graybatch out for my first wicket and bowling steadily, and then he came out first ball 6, second ball 4, and just showed the difference. So
he was
back in the 80s.
Yeah,
stunning.
I always used. I said this to him once. I said, "You reminded me a little bit of an approach to Nick Fowler at the time, for example." So you didn't want to be the best player in the world, Hogan. You wanted to be the definitive player. And there's a difference. And he denied that, but I'm absolutely sure that that's what he did, because he was such a great theorist, but not wacky theorist. He was a wonderful player.
Just
one of the
watching
best
his
technical
career.
players I've ever seen.
Yeah, beautiful on drive and whatnot.
Yeah.
Awesome player.
So that's your debut, and then what do you remember about the championship season, the '93 season?
Yeah, so 93, I can't remember too much, but I remember myself and my good friend at the time, Jason Pooley. We were in and out of the side, and I think I got my chances as a first-class cricketer because I actually bowled and batted, obviously. So although he should have probably made a bigger impact initially, I got in because I had a second string. So him and I might have played, I don't know, you might have the records there, 3, 6, 7 games, if that many.
I haven't got that down. No, I'm not that detailed.
Yeah, so we I remember one game, really important game, him and I put on a good partnership, 70, 80, 90 against Kent at Canterbury. And that was a bit of a highlight to get those initial points, because we were struggling. And that's got us over the line at the back end. So yeah, it was good to be part of that champion winning side, and to get a medal was awesome.
Yeah. When you first came into the side, was it very easy to coming into the squad even? Yeah, I know Butch found it. You're coming into a very difficult team. You tell me about it. You're shaking your head there, so I'm looking forward to hearing about this.
So as you know this more than anyone, back then, right or wrong, I think I'm more of an old school thinker. I spent more time in that school of managing yourself.
Yeah,
it's what you did. Now I'm a coach. It's my job, and it's your job to mentor everyone and give them a clap and really motivate. And those days, it came from you, the individual.
Yeah.
So as you would know, there was the first team and everyone else.
Yeah, the stiffs.
Stiffs. And I remember I think Clive Radders was the second team coach then. Mm-hmm. If he sent you from the second team dressing room down to the first team dressing room, your heart was racing. You're knocking on the door very lightly, hoping no one would hear that knock. And then be someone like Diamond there, Wixie, what do you want? And then you go in there and you see all these superstars. Must have been at least 10 international players. So that transition was very, very tough. The good thing is, I was really close with Neil Williams, Nelly, a fellow West Indian who played for England. So we would be together outside the cricket. So he took me under his wing. When I graduated, everywhere where he went, I went. Ramps was in the side, my age. So that was another little connection. So, you get those little cliques as such. And then you start finding your feet, 1 or 2 performances, feel a bit more confident, more comfortable. And then you become part of that family. But let me tell you, it was initially tough. Now,
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, do you think?
Like I said just now, I'm from the old school. I like it that way. No, I won't go into. I always say to my youngsters, I can't go into the corporate world and take my first seat being the leather chair. You've got to make the teas and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I'm really a person. You've got to get your stripes, get the respect, get the performances, and then go on. That's life in normal. That's how I deal with my life. It's a progression. I think nowadays 1 or 2 innings and you want to be playing for England, which, come on, I don't think it should be that. You really need to put performances in and earn that respect.
So leather chair's still there then when you started? I had
Yes.
I had a big leather chair there, right, and it was to the right of the windows as you looked out, the big windows as you looked out. And then there was a dressing table, and then there was my big leather chair.
And don't forget Diamond's personal mobile phone. The red.
Well, he was by the big red
the
telephone.
red telephone box. That was awesome. So, but yeah, everyone had their corners as such. But it's like, just going a few years further when back in the day the second team player would have a jumper with no C-axis.
Yeah.
And then you would get your second team cap with the 2 underneath, and then you get your first team the full crest.
Yeah.
And I like that because it showed you the progression that you were making.
Yeah.
And I remember when who was it? Angus Fraser, and who was the Australian coach that came to us?
John Buchanan.
John Buchanan came in and said, "No, we all have to be one."
Yeah.
And I think I know times need to move forward, but I still think I'm not sure. I just want that ownership of, you've done well, and this is what you've been rewarded with.
Yeah.
I might be old-fashioned, but I think that's the way to go.
I think I quite buy into that idea, and actually I'm quite curious because when had you come into the dressing room at the time where we started, you would have been seen as a kindred spirit. I think if you were saying, "I'm really old-fashioned values. I really like these," they would like you, because Fred and JT and that had old-fashioned values, and they didn't like upstarts.
Of course, and again, so where I'm from, from the East London of Hackney, to get somewhere, you've got to do something.
Yeah.
Just can't be rewarding individuals because we're a collective. I just still think, as I came in, I wouldn't have got Mike Gatting's salary or whatever, John Embry's salary. So why should I get the jumper showing that we're one? We only won when we play in that first 11. I don't know.
Aspiration. I believe in aspiration. I think you have to have an aspiration, and I see, Buchanan was, sort of thinking outside the box all the time. I never knew him, but from reputation.
His first and only year with us was phenomenal. What a fabulous guy. Wasn't really hands-on with the coaching. It's what's happened now. He was way before his time. He sort of outsourced coaches, but great manager and organizer. So he did well for the individuals, and obviously the older boys didn't really sort of buy into that new way of thinking. That's why he probably left in the end and did a fabulous job with the Aussies after.
It's interesting that you say that you kind of mixed with Neil Williamson
champion,
and then champion. And then Ramps a bit, and there's an obvious connection there, isn't there? Which sort of relates to what we're talking about.
I know where you're going with this. I was close with Norman. Norman and I still talk on the phone. Butch obviously is not so much because he's back living in the Caribbean. It's like anything, I'm a person of mixed race. My dad's West Indian, my mum's English, and growing up before my Middlesex times, everything in the household was a West Indian. From music, from food, for watching the Great West Indian side. So it was easy to be drawn to initially to the West Indian players initially.
Yeah. I think from and I've said this to Butch, from our perspective at that time, I don't think we ever thought we were playing in a diverse dressing room, and we were arguably the most diverse dressing room that's ever
Most
been.
definitely, most definitely.
And yet, all we ever saw, as far as we're concerned, were five, as it was at one time, five brilliant cricketers. That's all we ever saw. It's not what other people saw, of course, because you know all the stories. But that's all we ever saw.
Yeah,
So it
well,
wasn't that we were actually conscious of being, integrated and welcoming and all those sort of things. It was nothing to do with that. It was, Butcher's the bloke who stood at slip and caught flies, and Wayne was the bloke who used to moan about walking back into the wind while I had to do the other bit,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember playing lots of games with Wayne. Again, in his back end of his career, he played a lot of second level games. So before I broke into the first team, back then, as you know, you would have played 3, 4, 5, 6, even 6 years in my case as a second level player.
Yeah.
Before, and you're getting runs, but no one cared about the runs. The first team were brilliant, and it was hard to break in. And I remember being Diamond's Wayne Daniels' right hand man. I used to carry his skipping rope across to the nursery, and I used to carry his boots. Pick him up here, take him there. You know how Diamond was.
Yeah.
So you're in awe of these huge players, but at the same time you're learning a lot from them. And on the flip side, you had Embers, Ernie. He was. If you get on with John, you'll get on with anyone. He was the toughest cricketer I've ever come across.
Yeah. You came through a hard school, you see, and
he did not give you a slack. You had to earn that right to be in that.
I do sometimes wonder if and I may be wrong, but it's a question I do pose: is whether sometimes there's an air of entitlement that maybe precludes that kind of aspirational elevation through the ranks, if that makes any sense.
You're right. You're a journalist, so you're in the game more than I am. With the hands-on, you see lots of things, and like I said, a few minutes ago, those days you had to work for your position, get the respect, and no one was giving you any quarter if you weren't pulling your weight. And I remember Embers, and I remember Desi. Those two, they used to talk about. Desi used to have doing it for his children. I can't remember what phrase he had it is. And Embers used to have on his, what do you call it, peg? School fees. So this is business, and no one's going to mess up this business. And if you're going to be in this team, you'll make sure you're doing your job brilliantly.
Yeah, it's Mike Smith who used to call the Wayne rent and rates.
Mike, you mentioned Mike, again, fabulous guy. Mike, Tuffers, and Keith Brown used to drive to the ground because we lived in the same sort of area.
Okay.
And Mike, if I need help, we spoke about Don Bennett, but if I need direct help, I used to speak to Mike. People ask, why were you speaking to the scorer? Because the scorer watches the most deliveries. So he would say, Wicks, you're doing this, you're falling over, you should be doing this. And we used to have conversations going up the M25, whatever it was. And he was my confidant, as it were. Brilliant man.
Did you ever see him play?
I didn't see him play. I see footage, off the legs, standing tall, flicking the ball through mid wickets with his shirt collar undone.
Well,
people should talk about
very frustrating because he was one of those players who he had a method of his own, and it didn't really conform to. He was an elegant player. But he used to start outside leg stump, and he would work his way across and get into line, but he'd still play the ball square. And so he actually played a lot of cricket with only half a bat, effectively. And of course, he made an art out of playing and missing. He really did. He said there was an art because he played every bowler as an off-spin bowler.
Yeah.
No matter what they were an off-spin bowler. So he came back at him, especially at Lords down the slope there. He would play if it held its line. He'd play and miss. He missed in one game. I think it was a cup game of some sort at Lords, televised game. He missed 6 out of 6 from Beefy. Played him miss 6 times, and in the end he just threw his bat on the floor and his gloves on the floor. Yeah.
It's funny you said that. I'm just going forward. I'm saying, as a coach now, and I think the thing different between coaches, technique is an individual's technique. So I think coaches like to tarnish everyone with the same technique. He knew his game. That's why he survived so long, and it's really important. As a coach, I'm always making sure I'm coaching you, the individual, rather than coaching, a textbook as such. He found a method and it worked for him.
He was sort of dogmatic about it, I suppose. He wouldn't listen to any argument. So, I think he averaged about 36, Smudger. He was a good player, and we said we could have been better than that. Well, no, this worked for me. I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
So,
but that's what it was. You made sure you probably did enough to stay in the team. It's not like now when you've been analysed and there's cameras everywhere, really focusing on you made sure you cross-tick the boxes and move forward.
When do you think your best years really started? Mid 90s? Earlier than that?
No, that's a great question. I I finished up in 2006. So I think in my 20th season. And I think from about 2001 to 2006, I was scoring quite heavily.
Yeah.
And it came overnight. And I remember when I left Middlesex, or finished with Middlesex, I think Embers might have been in charge, and he said, "Can you talk to the players about what it's like being a professional cricketer, and what advice can you give them?" And I said to everyone, we're all here for a reason. We must be quite decent. But the quicker you could deal with your emotions, the better you would be. Mm-hmm. And it took me so many years to come to terms with failure. And I think around the early 2000s, just before my benefit year, 2001, I don't know, overnight, I said, I'm not going to be worried about getting out anymore. The best players get out. Everyone's going to get out. And then from there, so I finished my sort of stats, or almost doubled as such. So I think early 2000s up to I finished. I had a good period in middle 90s when I went on the England A tour. I had 2 good back-to-back seasons there. But if you're talking about feeling comfortable in your game, it was the early 2000s.
So you'd have been how old then?
So early 2000s, early 30s. So I finished at 36. I think I had at least 3 years in me. I'm smiling because I thought I should have gone on a bit more.
I've heard that one already today.
The club wanted to push the younger players, and again, I'm against that. I take it as a business. If your employer or employees are working well, why change?
Well, Middlesex's best bowler by distance at the moment is 39 years old, best pace bowler.
Well, everyone I know, I stopped playing league cricket or club cricket 2 or 3 years ago. And everyone that I used to play with always sort of like develop or improve as one gets older. So I was a little bit disappointed there. It's a bit sour now speaking about it again, but I have got over it over the years. Life goes on.
Your most productive season in terms of aggregate runs was 96, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I said, I had a good 94, back of 94, gone to the England A tour in 95, came back, got another good season, got some time, got a few hundreds. And then sort of fell off a bridge in 97. It was a horrendous year. I had back-to-back good years. And then 97, you might have been like this, fellas, where we had pre-season in 97, the year that Jack Callis came to Middlesex.
Oh, yeah.
I scored several hundreds in the pre-season games. Went into the first class season playing loads of shots and nicking off, and all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, where's this form gone? Because sometimes you've got to be able to pace your innings rather than feeling too confident. And I had a horrendous season in 97. First time I've been dropped from the side. That was an emotional hammer blow. But yeah, that was tough to take. Yeah,
I mean, that's extraordinary, actually, because, say, 96, I've got figures here, you got 1,200 runs.
Yeah.
And 400s, including that, we'll talk about that in a minute, maybe the Sussex game at Uxbridge, where you got double hundreds in the match there.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was good. So that was Somerset.
There's that, and then to follow on the following, just say a tour, and to follow on from that to not being able to buy a run is quite a thing, and you put it down to not just touch, but down to confidence, or to
Confidence, overconfidence.
Oh, really?
We went. I don't know. I think we were going back. We were going to Portugal those days and got a couple of hundreds in pre-season. Came back, got a couple of hundreds against the counties in the friendly matches. So I had about 300 or 400 going in before the first ball was bowled in the championship. And then, like anything, you go into the wicket feeling really confident because you've got runs behind you. You get a few bad decisions, a few OWs, nicks off, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, I've played 5 or 6 games, I haven't got a run. And then obviously doubt comes in, and then before you know it, you're out of the team.
Yeah. Do you remember a specific instance where you thought, hang on a minute, this is running away from me a bit here?
Yeah, I think it was a game we were playing at Glamorgan. I was opening with that's Jack Callis. And I got out quite early in the piece. And I'm not too sure if it was a televised game. I'm not sure. I can't remember that much back. And I went in the back there, the old buildings they used to have there at Glamorgan. Yeah. And I thought, oh, you're struggling here, man. You've got to find a way to turn it around. And it did not turn around. Couldn't buy a run, as they said. And it was a good thing there, Mike, because Straussy was a youngster. Andrew Strauss. He was a second team player then. In the back in the day, was it CFAX? He used to go home and check your scores. Your dad would check your scores, and there was no mobiles or phones, so you couldn't get a hammering from the old man, which was great. And you should go on, weeks this many, and Strauss this many, and it was horrendous. And I think both of us, I averaged 13 in first class cricket that year, and he averaged 13 in second team cricket that year. So when we used to meet up after obviously his massive successes as an international captain and whatnot, you must remember 97 when it could have gone either way for both of us.
Yeah,
13. So it just shows you, definitely unlucky for both of us. So that was horrendous. That was really horrendous times.
Tell me about that Sussex game then, because
Somerset.
Oh, was it Somerset?
Yeah.
At Uxbridge.
Uxbridge, fabulous game. And funny that I got 200s, and all the youngsters I coach now always bring it up because they probably Google me and they say, "Oh, you're the only guy in history that scored more than 150 in each innings of the game." So it makes me feel a bit great, especially when you're coaching youngsters and whatnot. It was a good wicket at Uxbridge. Uxbridge's very flat, and I got a few off in the middle early on and just kept smashing it. Good bounce, true bounce. I was pretty decent against quick bowling, but absolutely sort of blindfolded when it came to swing bowling. Anyone hit me on the pads, I would be out. Anyone that bowled the ball above the waist height, I was happy. Maybe that's probably growing up in the West Indian League as a kid. The West Indian boys obviously like to bowl it short rather than full. That was a great wicket for square the wicket shots. So, and I got out second but last over on the 4th day, batting with Tuffers, trying to save the match. And I played a back foot defence, and the ball trickled onto the stumps, rolled back for 160. And if I would have got a not out, I would have been on the pitch for 4 days. So that would have probably been another record in itself. A bit peed off with Gat, didn't let me bat longer in the first innings to get a double 100. That would have been tasty. But yeah, I batted with Ramps and got a few double 100 partnerships with Ramps. So proper player to bat with.
You must have learned a fair bit from watching players like Ramps and Jack Callis.
Desmond Haynes, more.
And Desi, of course.
Desi. Jack was a youngster. Jack didn't score heavily with us. Stephen Fleming didn't score heavily with us. You know what it's like. These were international players and made their grounding through county cricket. When Desi came, Desi was top of his game as a test cricketer. Watching Desi bat was phenomenal. And as I thought initially, my first game was against Sussex, but that was my championship debut.
Yeah.
And I just remember, batting with Desi, and I was batting at 9. Was it Tony Donnermaid?
Yes.
Yeah, he was bowling back and length, and he sort of getting the ball to bounce quite aggressively on me. Desi had a floppy on, came down. He said, "Man, watch the ball, man. Watch the ball. Take a single and watch me bat." That's what he said. Take a single and watch me bat. So I got the single. Desi was batting. He said, "You ready now?" I said, "Yeah." I remember the next ball I drove for 4 down the ground.
Yeah.
And he just came down, gave me a glove, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
The shackles were off. And it's again with Gats and these guys. When you're batting with these guys, the onus is on getting them out, and you could just sneak in the back door and get a few runs quietly. But Desi, Gat, I can't say enough about Gat. Gat's a champion player, champion person. Helped my career
Strange
phenomenally.
thing, I think, Fred used to say, Fred Titmus always used to say that cricket's a simple game made complicated by people, and he was a great adherent to the idea of keeping things simple. So you, as a spin bowler, for example, would recognise what he used to say. He said you should always bowl your over to make sure you get another one.
Well, so I was mentioning Gat and I mentioned Desi there as champion players, but Embers, although he was super aggressive to the youngsters coming in, but watching him bowl day in, day out, I learned so much. I learned not to give away runs when I bowled.
Yeah.
So I didn't get as many wickets as these guys. I had an odd display of good fortune, but my job was to go 2.5 runs and over. And setting the field. You know how ambitious to set the field slightly, move here, move there, and you've probably gone about a centimeter either way. And that's what I learned. That's what I learned from him. Fabulous player.
It's just keeping things simple. And I imagine that Desi and Ramps are like that with the batting. You see, there's no fancy stuff. It's just the basics. Do the basics well, and everything else follows, isn't it?
That long. Desi said on my debut in 1990, Mike. And I remember playing at Uxbridge. So not my championship debut, that is, at Uxbridge again.
Yeah.
We were walking around the boundary after. He said, make sure you make the good days count because you're going to have many bad days. I went, what? This is as a youngster, making my first class debut, a championship debut. And this great superstar said, you're going to have more bad days than you're going to have good days. So make the good days count.
Yeah.
And Ramps used to say the same thing. Make sure you get these runs in the bank for a rainy day.
So in 2005, Paul, you scored 4 runs shy of 1,000 runs in List A cricket, which I think is a remarkable season for anybody. 400s in that. I'm interested in how that suddenly happened, and whether, if indeed it did impact in any way, positively or negatively, on your first class game. Whether the two enhanced each other, whether you were able to separate the two off. What you remember about that season, really?
Yeah, I don't know what records you got there and what numbers you got there, but I think that season I scored over 2,000 runs collectively and got 50 wickets, which was obviously a huge achievement.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier in the piece, I think from 2001 upwards, my game went from strength to strength. And as I mentioned, it probably took me longer than I would have hoped to start putting those scores on the board. I remember just before that, Embers wanted a new opening batsman, and I tried several years before. And that's when pinch hitting was in vogue, and then you go out there and swing at every ball. And then I found a way, which worked for me, how to be more aggressive, but at the same time get more runs. I thought to myself, if I play as a normal batsman, you're going to score runs, but at the same time have your power shots in place. So I would say to youngsters now, cutting and pulling, I think I can still cut and pull up to this day. Because cutting and pulling is bad bowling. You would know you're a bowler. If I could keep the good ball out from hitting my pads, I should be okay. So if I got a half volley, I would play a conventional drive. If I got length balls, I would hit over the top. And this sort of formula worked for 2 or 3 years in a row. And secretly, I'm going to mention it, I wanted Desi's record. And every innings, I was getting closer and closer. And I remember getting out to Morley Kartik at Lancashire for the 996. I think collectively, I was a few runs short of Desi's overall record. And if you get Desi's record, you must have been batting half decent. But it was a formula, a consistency of a method, and it came up trumps that season, and it had a good effect, I think, on my championship scores as well.
There's a lesson to learn in that, isn't it? If you find something works, you rationalise it well, and you stick with it,
Most definitely, most definitely. Like I said, my earlier go at it, it was a swing at every ball because initially that's what I thought was needed and that was the job. But as you get a bit more experience, you start to refine it, and play beautifully. Have you been watching this IPL by any chance?
I've seen bits of it. I'm not a huge amount of it.
I can't pronounce his name that well, so shouldn't be trying it. KL Rahul.
Yeah.
Fabulous player. You know, all youngsters should watch this boy. That he's a technician. If the ball's in a certain area, he hits it away. If it's not, he plays like a test batsman, and that obviously is what he is. So it's fabulous cricketer, fabulous batsman.
Yeah, I think if you pick out. For me, if you picked out a player, modern batsman that I would put as an exemplar, it became Williamson actually.
Another one. He's been having a good season. Again, tick over, test bats batting, bad ball, knows these areas and goes for it. And that's why these guys are so fabulously consistent.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of it. I've watched bits of Jofra, but then you have to watch Jofra, don't you?
He's been pounding it. But getting back, to that season, that was very good. There was not much difference between the championship match and the one-day games. When you inform, I suppose. Doesn't matter where you're playing, you just inform, and you take one competition to the next.
Yeah, I think there's a case for saying that some players don't adapt it that well because what happens is you get elements, especially these days, of one-day cricket. Impacting. So a strength in one-day cricket becomes a weakness in first-class cricket, in red ball cricket. Owen would admit to it being a case in point where Owen's one of his bread and butters is the very thing that gets him out in red ball cricket, which is nicking off.
But Mike, you played more than most of us, right? Well, you got to remember, I'm from
not as much as you. I tell you.
I'm from an era where, and I speak about youngsters all the time because everyone's 2020, because it's Black History Month. Kieran Pollard, no doubt, is a multi-millionaire, and he's achieved those riches from not even playing a Test match.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're talking about West Indian players. Their best players are playing franchise cricket. Whether they should be doing that, yes or no, well, everyone's got to make a living. But my point I was making, I come from an era where you were learning to bat for 5 days.
Yeah.
You didn't hit the ball in the air, or you try not to, and you get a good clip around the ear from the old man if you hit the ball in the air. So everything was on the floor. So that was your way of playing an innings. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, you try to play as a batsman and then pick your scoring zones when you need to be in a list day or one-day game.
Yeah.
The foundation is important. Yeah. Batting foundations, and all the modern players like Owen, it's about strike rates. What is a strike? I didn't know what a strike rate was when I was playing cricket. It was about an average, not a strike rate.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where the individuals now get slightly muddled up.
I agree with you on that. I think one of the statistics that's disappeared a lot is minutes batted. Yeah, we still talk about batting as batting time, but actually nobody jots down time anymore. Just don't seem to. It's balls faced, and to me 100 in an arbitrary 100, let's say 175 balls doesn't mean very much to me. You tell me somebody batted 3.5 hours for that, then I've got an inkling of what it took to bat that time.
Well, I remember, batting at Derby. I was a captain, filling in for someone who was the main captain, but playing on a minefield at Derby, and batted nearly 4 or 5 hours for 70, 80 odd. Getting smashed up. It was my best stock ever.
Yeah.
Because you're grinding. There's a purpose behind it. And I think, as a coach now, I think that's what youngsters are lacking now. It's not their fault because every time you turn the telly over, there's a franchise match and everybody wants to do what they see. But that time at the crease, my best player that I probably saw in my lifetime, close to me, is Mark Ramakash. I can't speak high enough about Ram. Being a technician, being hungry, a desire to bat long and be at the crease is phenomenal.
I think that's one of the things about Stuart now is he's very big on batting time, batting occupying the crease. So you don't score runs sitting on your backside in the dressing room.
And you asked the question 5 minutes ago, was there a distinction between my 2005 season crossed over the championship? No different, because if you bat and you bat a long time and you have the fundamentals of the game, I think everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're lacking now. And I'm to blame because I'm a coach. So when I'm coaching, I still coach to bat long, but incorporate the aggressive nature of a strike rate.
You said a little earlier that you felt you retired too soon.
No, I didn't think I retired too soon. I think I was pushed to retire too soon.
Yes.
I thought I had three. Reluctantly. Yeah, I had the boots up.
You left the stage earlier than you might have liked to have done.
Yeah, I reckon I had at least three years, because 2005 you saw the amount of runs. And my last season was 2006, so you do the maths. Yeah.
But they're clearly still rankles then.
Yeah. So I like I said, years have gone past, but when it does come up, I do get a little bit, get my guard back up. The club wanted to go down the younger route, and I'm again old-fashioned. If the guy is 50 or the guy is 20, the guy that's performing has to play. I'm not one for building for the future. I need to know what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I think you get a, we're all batting passes, aren't we? We all. It's a relay, isn't it? We're all.
It's a byproduct. You're going to get that crossover. We're going to get that crossover for injuries and stuff and guys coming in. But if I was in charge of something, I'm taking results. Selecting my teams and my sides. Not what I have in the cupboard. So that will naturally, cycle around itself. Actually,
you moved into coaching. Did you get any of your coaching qualifications while you were playing, or did that come?
All of them. I don't know an older coach. I've been coaching for 33 years now. I first coached in 1987.
Okay.
Did my first badge. Went to Australia in '88 and coached there. Loved it. Back in the day, it's not like the high flyers now. You will have 6 months contracts, so you, I can't remember, what would it be? April to September.
Yeah. And
then September, you found employment somewhere else. Excuse me. And I love coaching. I coach in all the schools in the East End where I'm from. Loved it. Loved that sort of response you've got from the youngsters. And did it every year since while I was playing overseas here, and up to this day I'm still doing it. So I think I'm 33, 34 years in, and I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff, mate. It's been really good speaking to you about these things. When we do something like this, we never quite know where we're going to be heading. And it's so good to get a different take on things and to hear how things were when you played compared to how we were, and how sometimes things aren't so very different. They don't change that much. In some respects. No,
it's like I'll give one thing to finish off, Mike. I mean, what was the big anniversary a few years ago in Middlesex? 150th anniversary.
I should know. I'm only president. I know.
So something like that. Went to an anniversary thing, 150, about 5-6 years ago. And I was long time retired.
150th probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's Richard Goatley.
Yeah.
He called me over to his table and he said, "Rixie, what do you think the problem of our team is right now?" I said, "Richard, to be honest, I don't really follow county cricket as much as I should. But if you want me to have a stab in the dark, I'll have a go." He said, "Go on then." And Mark Rathcash was sitting next to him. So I said, "Look over there." He said, "Where do you mean, look over there?" I said, "Look in front of you." He said, "What? At that table over there?" It was a dinner. It was a gala. I said, "Look at those players, Middlesex players. Look, baby face. They've all got the same baby face. Where is the experience? Where's the Mark Rathcash? Where is the Mike Gattings?" So I think sometimes initially when you have everyone at the same stage in their careers, it's very hard for a side to develop. And as you rightly said, you need that sort of old player and young player combining. And I think initially that's where Middlesex went wrong a few years ago when they were just pushing the younger ones.
Yeah.
On talent, obviously, but no experience. And if there's no experience, it's hard to get a production.
Yeah, the guiding hand.
Yeah, the guiding hand. So that was funny. And obviously, I've made Rance shy because everywhere I go, I always big up Rance because I've never seen a batsman so consistent as him. Phenomenal player. Phenomenal player.
He was, yeah. I mean, Ramps is a different story, isn't he? But he's a player who.
Phenomenal player. Phenomenal player. You know, I tell youngsters now, you know, if I'm coaching a boy, I said, when Ramps and I are playing, because we're the same age, you would clip 2 as a kid, he would go bang 6. You would push 2 and he'd go bang 6. He would score heavily from a young age, and it was in his DNA from an early age. And again, going back to Morgs and players like him, if you don't bat a long time, it's very hard to bat a long time when you need to bat a long time.
It's funny, and I digressing here, but a few years ago, I happened to be at Sunningdale Golf Club, and totally separately, Ramps and Graham Hick were there. Both Hickey and Ramps were there on the same day. I saw them and I thought, you know, this is remarkable. These 2 blokes made their test debuts the same day.
That's right.
They've scored 250 first-class hundreds between them, and they've only got 9 in test matches. It's absolutely absurd, isn't it?
Fellas, all the people I speak to say, but Ramps only got 2 test hundreds. And I go, where do I go with this conversation?
I know.
If it was, what's the thing that the players get now? Central contracts?
Yeah.
I think if central contracts were there with Ramps and stuff.
And Hickey.
And definitely
Hickey. I think he got 50 first-class hundreds before he played a test match, you see. Most credentialed player ever to play test cricket in those terms.
You turn up at New Road, Worcester, and you got Hickey and Moody to bowl out. You have a sleepless night. But anyway, thanks for the conversation.
Thanks very much for your time. It's been very revealing, and
cool.
And you had a stellar career at Middlesex, a long career at Middlesex.
Really appreciate that. And hope to see you at one of the London Schools events in the future.
We'll talk about that another time, actually.
Yeah, and congratulations on being the president of the club.
Sure. All right, mate. Thanks very much.
Enjoy your evening.